The silent control method. They don't grab your hand. They don't force you. They don't shout or even ask. Instead, they deny. They forbid. They whisper, "Don't touch this." And suddenly, that's the only thing you want. This is the forbidden fruit effect. The ancient psychological lever behind reverse psychology. A method so silent, so invisible, that by the time you notice it, you'll swear the choice was yours. But it wasn't. Why does this work? Why do some of the smartest, strongest people you know, leaders, scholars, parents, even entire nations fall prey to this simple trick? Because the manipulator doesn't fight your willpower. They recruit it. Reverse psychology turns your independence into a weapon against you. It makes you defend your pride, your autonomy, your very identity. You believe you're resisting control, but in reality, you are obeying more perfectly than if you were ordered. Think back to childhood. The moment an adult said, "Don't touch that jar," what did you do? Your hand twitched toward it. When you were told, "Don't stay up late," midnight became a prize. When someone said, "Don't fall in love with that person," your heart burned for them even more. This is not immaturity. This is human nature. We are wired to rebel against restriction, especially when freedom feels stolen. Reverse psychology is not persuasion. It is provocation, and it doesn't end in childhood. It follows us into relationships, workplaces, politics, even war. But here's the sinister truth. Reverse psychology is not always accidental. In the hands of a skilled manipulator, it becomes a surgical tool. They know when to say no to ignite your yes. They know when to forbid, so that you demand. They know how to set the trap so perfectly that your pride builds the cage, and you close the door yourself. To understand reverse psychology, we need to go beneath the surface, into the machinery of the human mind. At its core are two forces. 1. Reactance, our instinctive rebellion against control. 2. Ego defense, our desperate need to prove autonomy. When someone tells you no, your brain does not process it as restriction. It processes it as threat. A threat to freedom. A threat to identity. Reactance fires up like an alarm. You don't just want the forbidden thing, you need it. To reassert that you cannot be controlled. The manipulator knows this. They weaponize your own brain chemistry. Instead of demanding compliance, they spark rebellion. Rebellion that leads you exactly where they want you to go. Psychologists tested this in a simple experiment. Children were shown two toys. One toy was left in the open. The other was placed behind a small barrier with the rule, "Don't touch this one." The result? Children ignored the accessible toy and became obsessed with the forbidden one. They lingered near it. They stared at it. They broke the rule. But here's the chilling part. This doesn't fade with age. Adults fall for the same trick. Only the toys become bigger. Relationships, careers, beliefs, nations. Think of banned books, censored art, prohibited speech. Every time society says, "You may not read this," that book becomes magnetic. Sales skyrocket. Curiosity erupts. The manipulator knows this. Dictators ban books not only to silence them, but to make them dangerous, to lure the curious, to expose the dissenters. Reverse psychology doesn't just manipulate desire. It identifies enemies. It separates the obedient from the defiant, and then crushes the defiant with precision. In relationships, reverse psychology takes a softer, deadlier form. The jealous partner says, "You don't really care about me." And suddenly, you are on trial. Not because you failed them, but because they planted the accusation. You rearrange your life. You text more. You prove harder, not out of love, but out of rebellion against an illusion of indifference. This is the silent chokehold of reverse psychology. They didn't ask for control. They gave you denial, and denial did the work. You may think you're immune, that you're too logical, too self-aware, but the manipulator counts on that. They don't aim for logic. They aim for identity. And identity is fragile. If someone tells you you can't handle this, your mind races to prove you can. If they whisper, "You'd never understand," you fight to show that you do. This is why even geniuses fall. Because reverse psychology doesn't attack the brain. It attacks the ego. And no one is beyond ego. History is littered with nations that fell prey to the silent control method. A leader feigns reluctance. I do not deserve this power. And the people, desperate to prove loyalty, cry out, yes, you do! Take it! Or laws forbid rebellion, making rebellion itself irresistible, until the dissenters reveal themselves, only to be crushed. Reverse psychology is not just a tool of lovers or bosses. It is the scalpel of tyrants. It engineers consent. It manufactures obedience. And worst of all, it convinces the victim that it was their choice. So now you see the forbidden fruit effect. The hidden lever of human pride. The leash of ego pulled tight not by commands, but by denial. From childhood to nations, the manipulator whispers, don't. And in our desperate rush to prove freedom, we build their empire for them. This is just the beginning. Next, we will open the manipulator's playbook. How they infiltrate relationships. How they climb to the top of corporations. How they bend entire nations to their will. Not by asking, but by forbidding. How the simple act of denial creates obsession. How the smallest no can spark the loudest yes. But the manipulator doesn't rely on accident. They craft. They orchestrate. They sharpen denial into a scalpel. This is their playbook. The invisible manual that turns rebellion into obedience. And once you learn to see it, you'll realize you've been reading from it your entire life. The manipulator begins with denial. But not any denial. It must be precise. Too strong, and it sparks open rebellion. Too weak, and it dissolves into nothing. The art is in calibration. A parent sighs, you wouldn't like that movie, it's too grown up for you. The child burns to prove them wrong. A boss smirks. I don't think you're ready for this project. The employee works night and day to prove they are. A lover whispers, I doubt you'd really miss me if I were gone. And suddenly, their partner scrambles to overcompensate. The manipulator does not demand. They withdraw. They deny. And denial lights the fire. But denial alone is not enough. The manipulator needs the trap to feel natural, to look like chance. So they use plausibility, a believable reason why they are forbidding, withholding, or doubting. The teacher who says, this exam will be too difficult for most of you. The politician who claims, the people are not ready for this kind of freedom. The friend who insists, you wouldn't understand what I'm going through. Each denial comes wrapped in reason, a reason the victim cannot easily reject without appearing weak, cowardly, or ignorant. The manipulator builds the cage. The victim steps inside, thinking it was their idea. The sharpest tool in the manipulator's kit is ego baiting. They know the ego is fragile. They know you will defend it at all costs. So they press where it hurts. They suggest you are not brave enough, not smart enough, not loyal enough. And then they wait, because they know your defense will not be words. It will be action. The lover who sighs, you don't love me the way I love you. The rival who sneers, you could never beat me. The leader who declares, this generation lacks courage. Every statement is bait. Every bait pulls you deeper. Until you are no longer proving yourself to the world, you are proving yourself to them. And that is the moment they own you. In the corporate world, reverse psychology thrives in silence. Consider the manager who wants an employee to work late without asking. He doesn't order. He sighs, most people wouldn't be able to finish this by Friday. The ambitious worker rebels against that prediction, not by leaving, but by staying late, by giving free labor, by sacrificing health, family, and sleep to prove they are not most people. The manipulator never asked. They only denied. And denial did the rest. On the grand stage of politics, the playbook grows darker. A government says, this knowledge is too dangerous for ordinary citizens. And the people beg for it. A leader insists, I am not the one fit to rule. And the masses cry, then you must. An empire forbids rebellion. And in doing so, creates rebels it can destroy. Reverse psychology does not simply extract compliance. It engineers loyalty. It manufactures obedience disguised as resistance. And it scales, from one mind to millions. The manipulator knows that outright control sparks suspicion. So they build an illusion, the illusion of choice. They present two doors, one open, one closed. But they frame the closed door as forbidden. The victim races toward it. not realizing both doors lead to the same hallway. This is the genius of reverse psychology. It doesn't fight free will. It bends free will. The victim believes they are choosing rebellion, but rebellion itself has been scripted. A partner wants reassurance, but instead of asking, they deliver the script. You probably wouldn't fight for me if someone else wanted me. The bait is laid. The partner, desperate to prove otherwise, invests more attention, more jealousy, more control. They play the role of the protector, a role the manipulator designed for them. The trap tightens, because the victim no longer acts from love. They act from fear of loss. Fear planted, watered, and harvested by reverse psychology. The manipulator's playbook does not stop at one denial. It escalates. They start small. You wouldn't like this movie. Then sharper. You're not ready for this responsibility. Then crueler. You could never survive without me. Each denial raises the stakes. Each denial deepens the victim's investment. Until rebellion becomes identity. Until obedience feels like freedom. Until the victim has given everything away, believing it was their choice. The most advanced manipulators don't even speak. They withdraw. A friend who withholds attention. A lover who grows cold. A leader who acts reluctant. No words are needed. The absence itself is the denial. And the victim rushes to fill the void, to prove their worth. This is the apex of reverse psychology. When silence becomes the command, now you see the manipulator's playbook. Strategic denial, plausible traps, ego baiting, illusions of choice, escalation, and silence. This is how reverse psychology infiltrates relationships, corporations, and governments. This is how it bends willpower into chains. This is how it turns rebellion into obedience. But knowledge alone does not save you, because even if you see the game, your pride still burns to play. The real question is, how do you defend yourself? How do you break the leash of your own ego? How do you recognize when resistance is just another form of obedience? You've now seen the forbidden fruit effect. You've seen how the manipulator crafts denial, bait, and silence into chains. And perhaps, you've begun to notice it in your own life. The sigh of a lover, the smirk of a rival, the calculated reluctance of a boss, the rhetoric of a leader. But seeing is not enough, because reverse psychology feeds not on blindness, but on ego. And ego is the hardest enemy to kill. Tonight, we shift the battlefield from exposure to defense. This is the hour where you learn to break the spell, to see denial for what it is, a leash, to feel bait without biting, to transform rebellion into reason. This is not a story of escape. It is a story of sovereignty. Number 1, naming the spell. The first defense is recognition. Naming the spell as it is cast. Every manipulative denial comes with a tell, a pause, a sigh, a sudden withholding, a challenge aimed at pride. But instead of reacting, you name it, silently, coldly. This is reverse psychology. The act of naming cuts its power, because denial thrives in shadows. It thrives when you feel its pull but cannot explain why. The moment you see the trick, the moment you give it words, you break its invisibility cloak. Recognition is not the end, but it is the first fracture in the chain. Number 2, the ego check. Reverse psychology survives on one fuel: your ego. The manipulator does not force you. They tempt your pride. They whisper, "You aren't strong enough. You won't dare. You're not worthy." And your ego, burning to disprove them, falls right into the trap. So the second defense is ruthless self-interrogation. Am I acting from choice? Or am I acting from wounded pride? The moment your action feels like proof of love, proof of courage, proof of competence, pause. Because proof is not freedom. It is submission dressed as defiance. The manipulator plays your ego like an instrument. The only way to resist is silence within. Number 3, reclaiming choice. The illusion of choice is the manipulator's masterpiece. 2 doors, one forbidden, and you rush toward it, believing it's rebellion. To defend yourself, you must reframe the question. Instead of asking, "Which choice proves me?" ask, "Which choice serves me?" The shift is subtle, but it transforms everything, because the manipulator wants your choice to orbit them. Once your decision orbits you, the spell breaks. Freedom is not refusing their command. Freedom is moving where their command is irrelevant. Consider the lover who sighs, "You wouldn't fight for me if someone else wanted me." The instinctive response is to prove them wrong, to cling tighter, to fight harder. But freedom whispers a different response. "I do not fight for love. I choose love." By reframing the moment as choice, the bait dissolves. The manipulator loses grip, and you reclaim what was always yours. Agency. Number 4, the power of delay. Reverse psychology is a trap of immediacy. The manipulator wants you to react now, to defend yourself before you've even thought. The antidote is delay. When the boss says, "I doubt you can finish this by Friday," do not reply. Do not defend. Do not rush into overwork. Delay. Step back. Let the heat cool. Because time is poison to manipulation. The urgency fades. The bait loses flavor. And suddenly you see the game. Delay is not weakness. It is sovereignty. Number 5, strategic indifference. The manipulator thrives on resistance. The forbidden fruit is only sweet when you long for it. So the next defense is indifference. Not rejection. Not rebellion. But stillness. When they say, "You could never survive without me," you don't scream. You don't prove. You don't fight. You let the words drop into silence. Because silence starves bait. Silence starves control. And silence makes the manipulator squirm because nothing terrifies them more than losing the strings they thought invisible. Number 6, the meta frame. The ultimate defense is meta-awareness, the ability to rise above the game entirely. You stop asking, "What do they want me to do?" You start asking, "What game are they playing? And why?" Once you see the frame, you no longer move like a pawn. You move like a player, and the manipulator cannot play you, because you are playing the game itself. This is the highest defense. Awareness that expands beyond the script. Awareness that refuses to be trapped in rebellion or obedience. Awareness that transforms manipulation into a mirror revealing not your weakness, but their hunger. A dictator stands before the crowd. They declare, "The people are not ready for true freedom." The masses roar, "Then we will prove ourselves." It is reverse psychology at scale. But the rare citizen who sees the frame who asks, "Why is this leader defining our readiness at all?" That citizen becomes immune, not because they resist harder, but because they step outside the script. They no longer play the dictator's game. And in that refusal, they reclaim what millions surrendered: autonomy. Number 7, the identity shift. Ultimately, defense against reverse psychology is not technique. It is identity. As long as you live to prove yourself to lovers, to rivals, to bosses, to governments, you remain vulnerable. The true shift is this: I no longer need to prove. I choose. Identity untangles the chain. Because when rebellion is no longer your fuel, denial cannot control you. When pride is no longer your compass, bait cannot move you. When choice becomes your anchor, manipulation collapses. You now hold the map. You know the playbook. You know the defenses. But most of all, you know the truth. Reverse psychology was never about the manipulator. It was about you, your pride, your hunger, your need to prove. And once you master that within yourself, once you no longer burn to rebel, but to choose no denial can chain you. No bait can trap you. No silence can command you. You are sovereign. And sovereignty is the only true antidote to control. If you learned something today, do these 3 things. 1. Hit like to show you're awake to the truth. You'd comment with the role of a manipulator you've spotted. Don't name them. Just type friend, partner, boss, or stranger. 3. Share this video to protect someone else before it's too late. And don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss it. Next, we will push deeper. From reverse psychology to an even darker weapon, the gaslighter's labyrinth, where truth itself bends and the victim begins to doubt their own reality.